Dodgers are owned by Mark Walter from Northwestern. In the NBA, the story is about Mark Walter today as well. The Buss family is selling the Los Angeles Lakers to Mark Walter for a valuation of $10 billion, which is the highest ever for an American professional sports franchise. Despite ending their 46-year run as majority owners, the Buss family will keep a minority share, with Jeannie Buss continuing to run the team as its governor for, quote, at least a number of years. Magic Johnson, who works closely with Mark Walter, is part of his investment group in some of his sports investments. And of course, the public face of the Lakers had a great time with this. He tweeted, "Just like I thought. When the Celtics sold for $6 billion, I knew the Lakers were worth $10 billion. I guarantee you he texted that to Larry Bird, if indeed Larry Bird texts. And then more importantly, and we just got this moments ago, Luka Doncic just posted this, quote, "The Lakers are an amazing organization. I'm looking forward to meeting Mark and excited about the future. I'm also grateful to Jeannie and the Buss family for welcoming me to LA, and I'm happy that Jeannie will continue to be involved. I look forward to working with both of them to win championships." Note the plural on championships there. So there's a lot here to digest. And Wendy, we were going to get to the Lakers this morning and their sale and all of that. Let's start there. From the perspective of a basketball fan, the Lakers are the preeminent organization in the sport. What is the significance of this sale?
Well, Mark Walter and his group already own 27% of the Lakers, so he's been part of the family for several years, and he had the right of first refusal if the Lakers ever sold. So we knew that someday if this Busses ever reduced their share, that it would likely be Mark Walter who took over, and that is what's going to happen here. Now, when he took over the Dodgers and his group took over the Dodgers, it transformed the entire team. They invested so much money. They revamped their front office, revamped all of their systems, modernized the Dodgers, and turned them into a multi-time world champion. Baseball is an uncapped sport. The NBA is a capped sport, so it's not just as simple as injecting money. However, from a overall standpoint, the Lakers are still definitely a family-run business. And over the last 15 to 20 years in the NBA, teams have been a lot more run like tech companies or private equity firms, and the Lakers have lagged behind in terms of infrastructure and other things of this nature. And this is where having extremely deep pockets now backing the team could make a major impact. I would think that while all NBA owners are thrilled today that their teams got more valuable with this purchase, that the Lakers potentially could become more formidable, and that could be bad news for them over the long haul.
Let's put up C10 if we can, Cindy. Just let's demonstrate exactly how successful the Dodgers have been since Mark Walter and company bought them in late 2011. They have the best record in baseball. They've made the playoffs 12 times, made the World Series 4 times, and won it twice. He takes big swings, trading for Mookie Betts, signing Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Blake Snell and many others. Now, as Wendy points out, that's an uncapped sport. Basketball is a sport with a salary cap, but having that kind of money behind an organization does matter. It does make a difference. Now, that said, when you hear Luka Doncic tweet, Markieff, and you know him well, you've played with Luka forever, or not forever, but you played with him in Dallas and then went with him to LA. When you hear him say, "I look forward to working with them to win championships," what is your reaction to that?
I mean, that's right. Luka's the kind of guy that when he's bought in, he's all the way bought in. I think that, let's be frank, we was in prime position to win the championship this year, but we had a bad matchup in the first round, and, to even say that gives the fans, gives the organization a lot of excitement moving forward, and I'm excited to see how it plays out these next couple years.
Monica, what do you make of Luka saying, "I look forward to working with them to win championships"?
Saying all the right things. I mean, that's exactly what you're supposed to say as a guy that is going to move forward as the eventual face of the franchise when LeBron James decides that he's done playing professional basketball. Look, we all know underlying that is what level of commitment are you going to show up with, right? And so I think that this is an opportunity to see iron sharpening iron in terms of a big-time owner that's not going to waste or spare any resources, and hopefully that means to put everything around Luka that he has no excuse not to be successful.
Windman, and this is on me because I kind of buried the lead in the question. But the reality is that there is one very big piece of this that has to take place in early August before we can even start having these conversations. Here's Luka saying, I look forward to being part of the Lakers organization and winning championships. But as of this minute, that isn't even a done deal, right? Can you explain?
Yeah, so I'm a big actions over words person, especially in the NBA, Greeny, and this is where Luka absolutely can do that. So I would argue one of the most important things that is on the table for the entire NBA this summer is whether Luka signs a contract extension with the Lakers, which he can do on or after August 2nd. He can sign for 4 years and up to $230 million. He has some reasons why he may not want to sign for 4. He could potentially sign for 3. But the Lakers need to get him into that contract. And look, I think the Lakers are a great spot for him even before this ownership change. Now, I would tell him that with this potential new investment, you couldn't be on a better basketball situation in the world with the Lakers. Having said that, until he gets into that contract, there will still be a little bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And that's important to point out here, too, right? Like that the commitment going in both directions.
100%.
I mean, the Lakers have not. We talked about how they don't spend on coaches and all that sort of thing. I do not mean this. Look, the Buss family have been an integral, important, meaningful piece of not just the history of basketball on the court, but just sort of the colorful history of the sport in so many different ways. And Dr. Jerry Buss was an icon in a million different ways. But the truth is, they haven't had enough money to compete with a lot of the other NBA ownership in recent years, and this completely changes that. And while fans don't like to think about that stuff because it isn't fun to think about, that stuff does matter, and it changes now.
I mean, Greeny, to your point, let's just shrink it down, right? The neighbors in LA. Right. Walmart is like loaded, and you see it in the new facility and the way they've gone and gotten coaches, the way they've maneuvered to make sure they've gotten stars. And so, yes, in terms of just being able to compete in LA still, like this is a big move. And you're right, the Buss family brought this organization to a place where a guy like Mark Walter sees it as an attractive investment, and that's terrific. They deserve kudos for that. Now you've got the next crew to take it into the next chapter.
So, Keith, assuming that Luka does re-up, or if that's the right way of describing what he can do as of August 2nd, what is this team missing? What has to happen for the Lakers this summer for them to be playing this week, this time next year?
Ooh.
Well, I think ultimately, Luka does resign now. Is it 4 years? Is it 2 years? So ultimately, I think he will be there. What I think they need to make happen to the roster, I think it's minor tweaks. You know what I mean? You are in a position where LeBron has maybe 2 years left, and he's trying to win right now. So I don't think bringing in a ton of new pieces and kind of revamping the team makes a lot of sense. I think where they were this year, where we were really close to winning. So it's just minor tweaks. You may get a big here and there, but I don't think you move pieces to move core pieces to get a big and mess the team up, when in all reality, you only really need one big for the big fella Joker to be able to get to the final. So I don't think you want to put too much into that. I think you come back with the same core pieces, and you just add maybe a big, and you keep growing your team. You keep growing your team through working them out and just trying to figure out what's the next steps.
Is it just little moves around the edges, or is there a big move that they need to make?
I feel like a center is a big move,
yeah.
But I do think that
both literally and figuratively.
Right.
Yes.
I agree with Keith, though, that they do seem to have a core. When you look at James, Reeves, Doncic, you're starting to get good minutes out of Hachimura. But the center, to me, is a big deal. They got to get somebody that can be bona fide in the Western Conference where size is a thing.
Windy, final word on that. What's the expectation?
If they're going to be committed to playing Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves together, in other words, they're going to keep those two guys on the perimeter, they just need more interior defense because those guys are susceptible on the outside. So they need somebody who can defend. It doesn't have to be a blockbuster trade, but their team right now is not equipped to defend at the rim with the perimeter players that they are playing.
Somewhat remarkable, right? Like, while the NBA Finals are going on, we had Desmond Bain traded the other day to Houston. We have the Los Angeles Lakers being sold. It's been a pretty busy week in and around the NBA's championship series, which continues tonight, and the O'Brien will be in the building. Thunder Pacers, Game 6 in Indy, 8:30 Eastern on ABC and ESPN Radio and ESPN Deportes. Coverage will tip with NBA Countdown at 8. We'll see if OKC can lock it up. He's the subject of today's Talk to Me after he made some fascinating comments the other day about the NBA's ring culture. How should winning championships impact the way we perceive the all-time greats? LeBron, talk to me.
A ring is a team accomplishment. I don't know where it started. It's just it's a long conversation, especially when it comes to, like, you know, me individually. I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport. You tell me, you know, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, you know, our wasn't unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys just because this guy won 1 ring or won 2 rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has 1 ring. Barry Bonds never won a World Series, and you can't sit here and tell me that he's not the greatest baseball player to ever touch a bat.
Okay, so, I mean, there's so much. He went in so many different directions very quickly because I know people will be yelling and screaming. Peyton Manning won 2 Super Bowls, not 1. But that obviously isn't his point because Brady won 7, and that's the point. The idea that we measure the greatness of players, at least in part, by counting the number of rings. Do you have an issue with it, or do you think it is an appropriate way of determining a player's legacy? Monica?
I do not have an issue with it, and I think it's fair. Now, what I will say is I think we all have to do a better job of acknowledging how hard it is to win. But, Greeny, if we have this invisible checklist when we're talking about the greats, if I don't subtract anything for you not having a ring, because those guys he's mentioned have been terrific, I'm going to give you +1 for each ring at the same time, and that's just how it goes. The point of sport is to be the last team, last player standing, and so to act as if we can't have a conversation and acknowledge the greatness of those that maybe did not get to that mountaintop is silly. But I'm also not going to act like the mountaintop is not worthy of a degree of praise.
Yes, the fact that it is so hard is the reason why we give credit to the people who scale it. Markieff, I'm interested in your perspective. As one, you've played your entire career in the ring counting era. What is your perspective on how heavily that should or shouldn't go into the equation when we judge the greatness of all-time greats?
I think I'm going to go with LeBron on this one. You know, it's twofold, right? You know, it's some great players that haven't won a ring that are not measured up. Kind of like what Monica said, they're not measured up with the greatest because they have won 1 or 2 rings, right? It takes away kind of what they really accomplished on the court because they haven't won a ring. You could take like a guy like AI, like, you know, a lot of times I can't win. It can't just be one player, you know, winning for the team. It's a team sport. I know, obviously, you know, LeBron's the best player. You take an example of the way basketball is played right now, right? It's handicapped because of the salary cap. So if I'm the best player and I'm doing everything that I can do to try to win, and my team isn't the greatest year in and year out, that can't be part of my legacy. That can't be a strike in my legacy because I can't get over the top, and it's not just me. Like, if you look at the stats, like LeBron type of player, I have, you know, 50,000 points. But obviously, I don't win every time. So is that against my legacy? It can't be. I mean, and like I said in the beginning, it takes away from what these guys have actually done on the court when it's a ring in front of everything.
We don't generally do this with baseball stars. No one ever talks about Ted Williams not being great because he didn't win the World Series. We don't generally do it with athletes except for basketball superstars and NFL quarterbacks. So, Harry, how about that? We definitely count the rings of the quarterbacks. Is that the right way for us to judge their greatness?
It might not be the right way, but I will say this. It can alter and put your legacy in a different capacity with everyone else. If you have the ability to win a ring, you are now in a different category than everyone else. Now, that's nothing to take away from, an Allen Iverson or a Charles Barkley, because, listen, AI went up against a Kobe Bryant, right? That's one of I would say, the top 3 or 4 players entirely in the NBA. Charles Barkley lost to Michael Jordan, who is the greatest of all time. When you look at the NFL in today's world, when you have a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, a Josh Allen, those guys not having a ring right now, well, they're in the era of Patrick Mahomes. So you can understand it to a certain degree, but people are still going to say if they're able to get to a Super Bowl and win a ring, that puts them in a different category. And it's not to diminish anything that they have done up until that point, but if you have the ability to win at the highest of the highs, then your legacy is going to take a major jump.
Quick take, Joe.
LeBron's slick, and I think everyone's missing the point here because this right here is being presented as a, hey, look out for the little guy. Look out for Nash and Iverson and Marino and all the guys who don't get their rightful place in history because they didn't win. This is about reframing the GOAT conversation with Michael Jordan because he's passed Jordan in virtually every statistical category that matters except the championships. So now what do? We start politicking that championships aren't as valuable. Hey, look, it's a team concept. My team hasn't been there to put me over the top to get there with Jordan. I don't know why we talk about rings so much. It's not about rings. Let's look at the individual glory. For example, I'm the all-time leading scorer. It's a chance to reframe. It's very slick.